Hi friends, it's Becky, and let's make a necklace, but first we're going to make a pendant bezeling this 14mm rivoli that came in the Sunny Solstice Potomac Beads Treasure Edition. That's the bead subscription box for Potomac Beads Treasure Edition on June 2025, and so I'm going to be using that, and all of the rest of the beads that I'm using for the necklace and the bezel came from that box. I'm going to be using these Azuki seed beads in this sort of pastel rainbow color. Out of all of these, it's this one right here that has all of these really light color, sort of pastel colors. You know, light green, sort of light purple, some light yellow in here, a couple of pinks. It might be hard to see it on the camera, but those colors are definitely in there. So I'm going to be using those, and then we'll be doing some embellishments using some of these discos. They were the, I think they're the 6mm discos. They might be 7 though. Yes, they are 6mm. So I'm going to be using those. You could also like substitute them with maybe some 6mm pearls or something like that if you had those. And that's what we're going to be using for our bezel. I'm going to be using 8 of those and a handful of the seed beads. And then when we get to stringing our necklace, I'm going to add these frosty AB finish tulip beads and some more of the discos. So I'm going to move these out of the way for now, since we're not using them quite yet. And I've decided to use some of this blue color. It's this one back here, dragon thread for that, because it blends in really well with these beads. So if there's a little bit of thread showing, it's not going to be a big deal. And it will show up easier on the camera than crystal. So I'm going to just pull off about a wingspan's worth of thread here. Hold this in one hand, and you hold the end of your the thread in the other hand and just spread them wide, and that's how you get yourself a wingspan's worth. And I need to get a better cut, so I'm just gonna snip that there. Okay, there we go. I'm going to be using a size 12 English style beading needle for this, so let's get threaded. And now I'm going to pick up 16 11/0s to start my bezel. This is going to be the back of my bezel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Oh, and I think I got an extra one. Let me double check. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 15, 16, 17. All right, so I took off the extra one. And I'm just moving this down almost to the end of my thread. I want to leave enough thread for tying over there on the other end. And I'm actually going to hold that end in one finger so that I can go through all of these beads a second time with my needle. Sometimes I can get it in a straight shot and sometimes I can't. That is okay, as long as I'm not skipping any. All right. Make sure I'm holding on to that tail thread. All right, and I'm going to bring these two ends of my thread together as we make a circle. And I'm just going to tie a little knot here so I don't have to worry about my tail thread anymore. I'm doing overhand knot first. And then when I go back the second way, it's almost like a square knot, but not quite, because on the second pass I'm going to go through twice. And that is how you tie a sergeant's knot. All right. So now I'm just going to sew through the bead next to that knot, and where I'm coming out of here, I'm going to pick up 3 11-ohs on my needle, and I'm coming up out of this bead here. I'm going to skip that one and just go through and sew through the next bead on the row. It's going to make a little point like that. I'm going to pick up 3 more 11-ohs. 1, 2, 3. Skip that next 11-oh and go through the one after that. So it's every second 11-oh to sew through after picking up 3 11-ohs. It's just going to make all of these little points all the way around, and you want to make sure that you have 8 points at the end of this, because it's every other seed bead, and we picked up 16 to begin with. Two, three. That one, go into the next. Again, this is going to be the back of our bezel, but there's no reason why the back of your bezel can't look kind of cool with its little pointy bits. 1, 2, 3. Just going all the way around. Alright, I've got one more point to add. Right here, the last one. 1, 2, 3. So this is the first 11-oh that I was coming out of. So I'm going to go ahead and sew through that. And then step up. Through my little point there. Sew through the first 2 beads that I added. So I'm coming out of that middle 3rd bead, that point at the end of this. All right, and now I'm going to pick up 5 11-ohs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to just jump over here to this next point and sew through that. So that was 5 11-ohs. And do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way around. You know, there is a middle bead in all of these as well. Make makes kind of a larger point. So we go around. You can see that it's just about the width of this, but we are going to need it to come up and around as well. Okay, two more. Alright, and this last one, I'm going to want to go into this point here. So let's pick up our 5 beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And go into this point. That's where we were coming out of initially when we started this round. And then I'm going to go through the first 3 beads that I added for this round so that I'm coming out of that middle bead right there. Alright, and for this I'm going to do 3 11-ohs between each of these points on my little star that I'm making. So 1, 2, 3 into this next one. And I'm not tightening this up yet because it is going to cup around the edge of my my rivoli when I get that put in there. I do want to get these beads in place before we tighten things up. Let's see, it will start it cupping forward. That is 1, 2, 3. Mm. 1, 2, 3. All right. So now I've come full circle, gone back into that first point that I went through. And now I'm just going to turn it over so that my tail is coming back out the other way. And I'm going to kind of guide it with my thumb while I give a small tug to my thread. I'm going to set that rivoli right there. It isn't ready to hold it yet. What I need to do is add another round of beads that cinch this up a little bit more. So I'm coming out of this. This was the point here, and there's this group of 3 that I added. I'm going to sew through the first 2 of those so that again I'm coming out of that middle 11-oh. Tighten this up just a little bit. Not too much though. Just a little. And I am going to pick up 2 11-ohs and find that next group of 3 and just go through the middle 11-oh on there. Then pick up 2 more 11-ohs, find that next group of 3, and go through the middle one. And it's okay if it's loose right now, because we will tighten it up when we get our rivoli in. 1, 2, 3. Find that next group of 3. Oh, did I pick up 3 or 2? Hold on. Yes, that was 3 instead of 2. It should just be 2. I miscounted. I'm backing up out of that. Went under a thread bridge, so there we go. Backing up out of there. It should just be 2 11-ohs between each of those. So I'm going to take one of those off. And then go back to that group of 3 I went through before. And that's getting a little bit loose, so it's harder to see. You see how it kind of brings that in and curves it in. Just gonna stick my thumb in there to loosen it up so that I can get my rivoli in later. 1, 2, and the middle bead in that next group of 3. This is like tightening the shoelaces. Pick up 2, find that next group of 3. Pick up 2, find that next group of 3. Pick up 2. Find that next group of 3, go through that middle one, and we're just going to keep going till we get around to the other side. So I've got 2 and 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. Where did I start? Okay, I started here with this group of 3, so I've got 1 more to add. There we go. And once I go through that one right there, that's where I started. I can go ahead and go through those 2 that I added. So I'm set up for tightening this up after I put my rivoli in. Just set the point there in that center bit, push it down, tighten my thread. You can use your fingers to help form it around the rivoli if you want. But now it is still a little bit loose, so what I'm going to do is those groups of 2 11-ohs that we added, I'm just going to sew through those. Those 2 and then those 2. I'm going to go around twice, maybe 3 times, all the way around and tighten it up each time. You see how we've kind of got like a lacy kind of a look on this, so you can still see the color of that rivoli through those beads. I love this kind of bezel for that when you've got crystal. Because sometimes like a peyote bezel or something, it's more like a coat, but this is like a lacy dress, you know? And ooh, well, that was unexpected. My thread is getting way too tangled. Hold on, I have to go take care of that. That was unexpected. think I might have sewn through that a little bit too much. Hold on. Stay there. Okay, I'm just smoothing out my thread a little bit more. There we go. That's better. All right, so for sure, I'm gonna keep going around again, just through the twos, the groups of two that I added, not through those middle ones in the groups of three. We're skipping over those. Because that will tighten this up even more. I can find the edge of that bead. There we go. Sometimes I can't get the angle right. Now I could go ahead and leave after I finish going around this and reinforcing a little bit more. I could leave it like this and just add a bail to it. I think that would actually be a very nice little component or pendant, but we're going to jazz it up with some extra beads. Make it a true, proper focal. So I think that this is nice and secure. That rivoli is not going anywhere. So I'm going to travel through this bead path. I'm coming out of one of the groups of two. I'm going to go through that middle one that we had originally attached that to, adhered it to. Go through 1, 2, 3 of these beads until we find this bead here. This was the point of the 5 11-ohs that came out of the back here. That's this point here, and we're going to end up going through that again. And to do that, I'm going to pick up 5 11-ohs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to jump from this center bead here that I'm coming out of to this next one right here. I'm going to go all the way around, adding 5 beads and going through those 11-ohs that are right there at that junction. It's going to make another little point coming up out of our guy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These beads are like the most subtle rainbow. I'm really enjoying it. It's like fairy princess rainbow. You know what I mean? Just perfect. I need to look up the actual color of these beads because they are so pretty, and they have them at Potomac Beads. They're their Azuki brand. It's a brand of seed beads that they started carrying recently that are less expensive, but as you can see, just as good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll find the color and I'll list it in the products that I'm using, the materials that you'll need. It'll be in the description of this video if you were wanting to check them out. Right. I've got 2 more points to go. Two, 3, 4, 5. All right. So now I'm coming through that same point from the original 5, and I'm going to travel up through the point that I added till I'm coming out of the middle bead of that group of 5. That third one on that list. So it kind of looks like a pretty little flower at this point, but now I'm going to be adding my discos. So I'm going to pick up one 11-0, one of these crystal disco balls, and another 11-0. I'm going to jump over here to this next point, over here on this side. And I am going to add all of these discos all the way around, doing the same thing. Pick up an 11-0, disco 11-0, and then go through this next point. And this is going to be floppy. We have not reinforced it yet. We have not added more beads to help it stay put, so just go ahead and support it with your finger. Don't be alarmed that it's not super structural yet. I feel like this is kind of mandala-y. That's what it feels like to me. Which is really fun. I like that. We're going to go all the way around. Now, never fear, we are definitely going to be reinforcing the line of thread holding these crystals on. But before we do that, I want to reinforce the back side of it a little bit. So I'm coming out of the first seed bead next to this crystal. That's the first one that I added. I'm coming right out of that 11-0 there. I'm going to pick up 2 11-0s. And I'm going to go back here. You can kind of move that out of the way. And sew through that center 11-0 again. That's the one that we went through when we were adding our points around here. Let's pull that tight. And then pick up 2 more 11-0s. And go through this 11-0 next to the disco on that side. You can move these out of the way if you want to tighten that up. This is going to give us a little more structure. And then this 11-0 here. And the one next to the disco. And then pick up 2 more 11-0s. Go through this guy down here. Two more 11-0s. Go through these 3 11-0s here. And you can't go through them all at once because they're a little bit at a V angle. But tighten it up in between. And you're always going to be coming out of one of these 11-0s next to the disco. Right here. So see, it's a little loose, but not as loose as it was. And we are still going to be going back through here and reinforcing this in a little bit. But I am going to just add these and tighten them all up as we go. So I'm going to go all the way around, and I will meet you back here after I've done that. Alright, so here's my last one. I'm going to go ahead and go through all of those beads that I went through before. The one next to the disco first. Let's just go through that one first. One that's connecting it down here. A little point in between. And this one's a little bit awkward because it wasn't connected to the other one initially. Alright, and now I'm going to go through the 11-0 next to the disco, and the disco, and the 11-0 on the other side. But angles mean that I've got to do it a little bit at a time to go all the way through all of these because we are going to be reinforcing them. I'm just going to pull it tight as I go. And I'm going to go all the way around. But when I get to the last one of these, I'm going to add a little bit extra to it so that we can have a bead to string on. It's one of my little, my favorite little hacks, I guess, for when you make a pendant, is to make sure that you've got a bead that you can string through. And I could string through one of these, but I just want to add an extra disco like on top of it with some of these beads for it to dangle from. Instead, you could always add a bail, like maybe a ladder stitch bail, or maybe a what is it called, like a wire guardian or something, instead of doing this, but then it becomes a more integral part of the necklace that I string it onto by using one of the beads that's going to be part of it, which most of these are actually. And this is one of the reasons that I am going around to reinforce it, is because the discos were a little bit wobbly, and I think that is the last one. Alright, so this one here. Going to go through this disco. This is going to be the top of the pendant. And I'm going to pick up 5 11-ohs. Should it be 5? Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Going to go through this extra disco and pick up 5 more 11-ohs. So back through this one. So it'll dangle like that. And I'm just going to reinforce that. Going back up through all of these seed beads, the disco, the other seed beads, and the first disco that we were coming out of. And I might just reinforce it one extra time. Although sometimes if we have the thread a little too tight next to the hole, the 11-ohs block it, and it makes it more difficult to string. Yeah, I think 2 is good. All right, so I'm going to work my way back down through the work. Follow some thread paths through here, around to the back. Sure I'm not looping my thread on things I oughtn't to be looping it on. But I do want to find a spot where it is convenient to tie off my thread, and I think I'm almost there. Alright, that looks like a good place for that. I'm going to go underneath the thread between these 2 seed beads, next to where I'm coming out of. Make sure I've got a loop to go through. I'm going to go ahead and go through that loop, and that's just going to make a half hitch knot. I'm going to do another one right here. And go through that next 11-oh next to it. And down through this one. Those 11-ohs from the beginning. Now I had already burned off my thread from my tail, so I can burn this one off too. And now I have a pendant. All right, so I'm going to keep these 11-ohs out. I'm just going to scooch this back a little bit so we can start working on stringing the necklace. Isn't that pretty? I think this would be a great necklace for winter time too. All right, so we've got our tulips. Let's lay this out. I like to lay a necklace out before I use it, before I do things with it. I also am going to need some wire to string this on. I believe I've got that's too warm. Let's just grab some beading wire real quick. All right. I think some gray wire will do. Make sure that I can actually get to the hole on this bead here, because that is my veil basically. There we go. Yep, so I am going to be able to string that after all. Perfect. All right, now I've got my tulip beads. Let's lay these out. I have disco between each of them. And there are 10 of these, so we're gonna have 5 of the tulip beads on each side. There's more than that of these discos though, so 2, 3, 4. When I run out of the tulip beads, we can keep going with just the discos around the back of the neck if we need to. And we're going to have some of these 11-0s in between our larger beads, just classing up the joint. There we go. So I'm going to start with one side of the necklace. That way I will be able to keep my wire on the spool and not have to accidentally cut off too much or not enough or something like that. I find often when I'm stringing with 11-0 seed beads, it's helpful to cut the wire at a bit of an angle, because that gives you a little bit of a point that makes it easier to string the seed beads on. I am using flush cutters for that. And when I go to attach my hardware for closures, I'll have some 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think that's a decent space between the beads. Let's try that. But yeah, I'll have some of my chain nose pliers and 1, 2, 3, and a crimper to crimp my wire. Now you can string these on beading thread, but if you do that, you'll need to reinforce it. So you'll need to go back down through the length of your necklace. You want to go through once and then back again the next time. And you'll want to use some wire guardians as well on the ends instead of just doing thread for that. But you can do thread. I love that. That is such a cool effect. Who would have thought, with all those really warm color beads that we got in this box, that I would be putting together something with as silvery of a tone as this. But that might be more of a surprise from this box than not. Actually, I'm going to move these closer to the middle so that I'm not getting in the way of those other beads there. But this that addition of that selection of seed beads that really expanded a lot of the things that we can do with this box, to have so many different colors of seed beads that we could use with the beads that came in the box. So I was really happy to get that. I do like odd numbers for spacers sometimes between these types of beads. They're so pretty. Sometimes this works for me, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it takes longer to get 5 beads on there doing that, the scooping across the top method, than it does to just individually select them. Like that. Alright, so now I'm adding just the discos along the back end of this. And after I've added my last bead, I'm going to do a fit check to see if it is long enough, if it's too long, or if I need to just extend this a little bit longer with more of these 11-Os. So let me get 4 of these on here. 2, 3, 4. Wait, 5. I was going for 5, not 4. Where is my mind some days? Alright, let me see how long this is. Oh yeah, I think I need about 20 more of these on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So that gives me 25 back here along the back. Alright, and that is a perfect length. Let's add a bead stopper. To that end. Then now that that is a good length, I can cut off my wire. On the other end, make sure I have enough for crimping. This is how we don't waste wire. Right. And once again, because I'm picking up 11-Os, I'm just going to cut my wire at an angle, just the end of it. I'm going to repeat the same pattern up the other side. So we're going to go with groups of 5. On the 11-ohs, and these beads over here in that same order. Kind of zigzagging it, because why not? It's fun. Think when I photograph this, I'm going to photograph it against the my desk because these are such light beads. I think the light color of my bead mat is washing them out a little bit on camera. You can't see like just how glimmery they are. I'll move my bead mat when I'm finished with this so you can see it against there as well. Now, I originally had thought about doing this with this green color of seed bead because of the green in the pendant, but I think it actually just washed out the color of the pendant. So having something that evokes the color instead was a better option, I think. That's a little funny looking. Let's move that out of the way. I know, I've turned it over, making it look as though I'm stringing the same side. I'm just, I'm right-handed, so I sort of want my stringing side to be right here on the right side. You know what I mean? It's a little easier for me to do it from this direction than from the other direction. I wonder if everyone got the same color of rivoli. or if you might have gotten a different color this month than I did. If you get this bead subscription, let me know what color rivoli you got. This bezel will work with any 14mm rivoli. Just choose some complimentary seed beads from the seed bead selection. All right, now I had 25 of these on that side to fill out that space, so let's do 25 on this side. All right, time for counting with Becky. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I don't think that actually picked up. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. Oh, I think that might be 26. That's all right. Yes, I have, I think, one extra on that side. So I'm just going to pick up one extra on this side because one more is not going to ruin this necklace. Ugh, love it. All right, let me get my crimps and my crimper, and then I can attach my clasp, and I can have myself a necklace to wear. First, I'm going to put away my seed beads. Go. Crimps. I'm using 2x2 crimps. They are my favorite crimps. And my magical crimper, which is my favorite way of making crimps. I like it because I don't have to use a crimp cover. It leaves me with a nice little smooth ball of crimp. I just need to find my crimper. Alright, I found my magical crimper. I've got my crimps, a lobster clasp, and some jump rings. And I'm going to keep my bead stopper on one end of my wire and put my crimp on the other end. I'm going to bend my wire back through the crimp so that it is making a loop like that. And then I'm going to use my magical crimper. Again, it's my favorite way of crimping. So I don't need to use a crimp cover. It has a little concavity on the inside of it. What I do is I make sure that my crimp is centered before I do my initial squeeze. And then once I do that squeeze, it just pushes down, smushes down the corners of the crimp. And then if I rotate it 90 degrees, do another squeeze, and then rotate it again at a different angle and do another squeeze, and just keep going around at different angles and squeezing it at those different angles. It smooths out those corners so you have a nice little ball of crimp. It's very secure, and you're left with a little loop you can use to attach your hardware to. So let's crimp the other end. I'm going to do it exactly the same way. second crimp because that one was pretty far away from where the beads were. When I get to my second crimp, and I do like to kind of curve this a little bit to take out some slack, I'll make my loop, and then I will use my thumb to make sure that there's a little bit of space between that bead there, that last bead on here, and the actual crimp, because you want to have a little bit of space there so that your crimper can fit around it and you don't end up crushing your seed bead with your crimper. I have done that before by crimping too close to a seed bead. Now we're going to open and close these jump rings. As I said earlier, I'm going to use a chain nose plier to open and close the jump rings. And I've got my, you can use another set of pliers or a jump ring, but I'm just going to actually hold it with my crimper because it's flat except for where that concavity is, so it holds it pretty steady. While I twist it open and attach it to the loop that I had created before. Now you could loop through the ring without opening and closing it afterwards. But I like having a little loop and then attaching things to it. Let's get this little lobster clasp on. I always test my lobster clasps before I attach them because it's not like I can't replace it if it doesn't work. It's just, you know, I'd rather know ahead of time that it doesn't work. Alright, my friends. This, again, is a little bit washed out from the light background. So let me move my bead mat out of the way so you can take a last look at this bezel. This is from my art. It's actual paint splatters from whitewash. But anyway, that isn't that beautiful? I love that. Go. So that's our necklace made with the Sunny Solstice bead box from Potomac Beads. This is the Treasure Edition for their best bead box, and this is the bezeled rivoli and a necklace using the beads that came in that bead box, and I quite heart it. Alright, if you're interested in Potomac Beads, there will be a link in the description below that you can check out to look at their different subscription options. I'll put a link to the beads that I selected for this because they were this really pretty, like, light rainbowy mix of beads, and I thought that they looked fantastic with this rivoli. I'll put a link to that as well, and a link to my unboxing for the rest of this subscription. And until next time, my friends, happy beading.